What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning back in. This is MF GOON, the Arsenal supervillain. Today, we're going to do a little pre-match preview of Arsenal vs Brighton in the Carabao Cup. Unfortunately, we've got to start with some bad news. Mikel Arteta has just done his pre-match press conference, and he has confirmed after the knocks they picked up on the weekend, William Saliba and Gabriel Martinelli will be out of this game, and they unfortunately. He said that there's not even a clear timeline for their return, particularly in the case of Saliba. Gabriel Martinelli, he sounded a little bit more positive about and said this game came just a little bit too early for him, but ultimately he won't be able to make this one. Let's hope he can be back for the weekend. But with Saliba, yeah, it does seem like maybe he's going to be missing 2 or 3 games. Let's obviously hope it's just this one. He'll be back for the weekend because we've got a tricky away game, 3 tricky away games in fact after this. But yeah, big miss for Arsenal. I think if we're being honest, like Saliba is not necessarily a miss for this game. I don't think he would have played, but it's more so a case for the games that we have coming up, and the same with Gabriel Martinelli. Yeah, Carabao Cup, it's going to be interesting. I think if we're being honest as Arsenal fans, we compete in four competitions. Obviously, the Carabao, FA Cup, Premier League and Champions League. I think it's fair to say this one will be the bottom of most Arsenal fans' priority list in terms of what we'd like to win. But nevertheless, a trophy is a trophy. We haven't won one in, 5 years now? And, we need to pick up silverware wherever we can. That being said, I do expect Mikel Arteta to ring the changes. I think we'll almost certainly see Kepa starting goal ahead of David Raya. And we could see a completely new back four, 4 players who would never have played together, certainly in one back four. So what I'm expecting is Miles Lewis-Skelly to start at left back, Christian Mosquera and Piero Hincapié starting at centre-half, and Ben White, obviously great player, just been struggling with injuries of late, desperately needs some minutes. I think the more we can reintegrate him into the side would be brilliant as well, because just being able to share out the minutes between him and Yuri and Timber a little bit, I think will be really useful for us. We've seen in the last 2 seasons having to overload one of those guys. I think 2 seasons ago, overloading Ben White has led to him picking up the injuries he's currently suffering with. And last season, overloading Yuri and Timber, near the end of the season, he ended up having to have some kind of procedure on his ankle from just playing, way too many minutes. So, yeah, getting a kind of like timeshare thing going there, right back with those 2 players, I think will be super useful. Midfield and up front, I think, is where it gets a lot more interesting from an Arsenal perspective to see what we might do. I expect Christian Norgard to start in the Zubimendi role. Again, another player, experienced player. We've brought him in for these kind of games, not necessarily the Premier League or the super difficult Champions League fixtures, but to provide a solid, experienced, professional option when we need it. Someone, again, who needs more minutes, and I think will be really useful for him. It's the other 2 positions that I'm keen to see what we're going to do. I think we'll see Ethan Nwaneri start in the Erdegaard/Eze role. I'm expecting to see that. It's more so what is he going to do with the other position. So in the last video, I said if I was Mikel Arteta, I would have gone with a front 3 of Eze on the left and then some combination of Trossard and Martinelli, with one of them at centre forward and the other on the right. Obviously, now that Martinelli's injured, that's not possible. So I'm wondering, will Mikel Arteta start Mikel Merino up top? Because Gyökeres, I think desperately needs a rest, and we'll come to that in just a little bit. So I'm wondering if we might see one of Zubimendi or Declan Rice kind of like in a double pivot role with Christian Norgard, and then to surround Ethan Nwaneri with a bit more experience as well. I think we will then end up seeing Eze on the left, Trossard on the right. I wouldn't be surprised if either of those are swapped around, but that's what I think it will be. And I would start Mikel Merino up front. I think Victor Gyökeres, unfortunately, due to the injury that we've suffered with Kai Havertz, has really been struggling. I think we've got a few players in that front 3 really running into the red zone when it comes to fitness. Like we've had a long to medium term injury for Noni Madueke and a long to medium term injury for Kai Havertz, meaning that Bukayo Saka and Victor Gyökeres are just having to play 90 minutes, 3 times a week. Saka obviously had to come off in the last game, not due to an injury, but due to illness, meaning he wasn't fully fit. So I think we need to manage these minutes carefully. As we said, we've got 3 tough away games on the weekend, starting on the weekend, should I say. And I'd like to have Victor Gyökeres as sharp as possible. I think the Premier League is obviously the priority, and giving him a rest and sitting him down in the Carabao Cup is something I would do. Look, if we're chasing the game and there's 1 goal in it with 20 minutes to go, or we're looking for a goal, yeah, we can bring him on and give him 20 minutes, maybe a bit more. I certainly would not like to see Gyökeres starting this game. I think last time we had a Carabao Cup game, it was against Port Vale, and he started on the bench. I think he played like the last 15, 20 minutes. And then that game, the game that followed that on the weekend was against Newcastle. He looked razor sharp in that game from what we can remember. Really troubled the Newcastle defenders with his running. Got absolutely clattered by Nick Pope. Somehow wasn't given a penalty. I still think that's one of the worst decisions we've seen all season. But it just showed the benefits of resting like your players, especially in that forward line, who need that pace and that explosiveness to make a difference at times. So that's what I would do. Let's see what Mikel Arteta is going to do. I think there's also a few other interesting players that we can think of. Max Dowman, obviously kind of like the talk of the town at Arsenal at the moment. Just such an exciting youngster. He's featured a little bit this season, but, when you're a side as good as Arsenal, pushing for the kind of trophies that we're pushing for, a 15-year-old, quite frankly, is just not going to get that many minutes. So I think these Carabao Cup games are the kind of instances that we'll be looking at to see if we can use him. I think obviously, again, the last Carabao Cup game, he came on against Port Vale and almost provided a brilliant assist for Gyökeres. Gyökeres couldn't quite find the finish, but I think I remember it was a really good first-time ball clipped in from the right, straight over the top. And he's looked good pretty much every time he has come on for Arsenal, so it'll be exciting to see him again. Outside of that, I think, as I said, this is the main purpose of this fixture for me is to reintegrate certain players into the team, get minutes into the legs of those who desperately need it. I would say Nketiah, Ben White, Norgard, Waneri are chief among those. I think the other players in the squad, even if they're not necessarily starting all the games, they've actually played quite a lot of minutes. Miles Lewis-Skelly's played a fair amount. Mosquera's obviously played a fair amount. So has Trossard and Eze, of course. Kepa, I think, that's another one. It'll be good to get him 90 minutes under his belt. So let's see what happens. What do you think, guys? Let me know. Who would you go? Who would you go with if you were Mikel Arteta? If you could pick the team, what would you do? I think I've made it clear what I would do. I think this is a really important opportunity for Arsenal and Mikel Arteta to rest key players. As I said, priority has to be the Premier League. Tough away games coming up. Get your players fresh. Keep your players fresh. We've got an international break coming up. In a couple of weeks. Obviously that eats up a bit of time, and hopefully we get some of our key players back after that break. Kai Havertz, Noni Madueke, Martin Odegaard, and I'm hoping we see Saliba and Martinelli before that. Of course, as I said, with the games we've got coming up, we're going to need them. So let's see what happens. I think that's everything to be said. I think Mikel Arteta has obviously said Brighton are a very good team. There's players there we need to worry about. Our old mate Danny Welbeck has been in great form. I think he scored 5 goals in his last 4 Premier League games, so he's in red hot form at the moment. Somebody we need to certainly be wary of. We know like Brighton are a really good side. They've shown over the last few years, on their day, they can beat any side in the Premier League, whether it's Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool. This isn't a team that we can take lightly. It's not Port Vale, put it that way. So while I think we're going to rotate a lot of players, I still think Arsenal will have to be close to their best to get a win here. But let's see. Big game tomorrow. Big opportunity in 2 senses, for players coming on and for players to get a rest. Let's see what Arsenal do. And let me know what you would do, Gunners. Before, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Help me grow this channel. And we'll speak to each other again after the Brighton game. Bye-bye.